Hello, hello. Good afternoon. Welcome
Hi,
to SHEDcast. Hi, Chris. How you doing?
Hi. Fine, thanks, Marcel. Yeah, hello.
Good to see you. Welcome to SHEDcast number 18 on the 15th of July 2020. Can't believe it's 18 weeks since we started this SHEDcast malarkey, since the beginning of lockdown here in Guernsey. Yeah, where does the time go? I was talking to some people this morning because you may know that Guernsey's out of lockdown as of the last, couple of weeks. I was talking to folks this morning, and there's just a general sense of, I don't know how to describe it. We can't quite put the right word on it. Sort of like, not malaise or uneasiness, but maybe it's sort of directionless of right now. What are we doing? No momentum of like, this is what we're doing on Wednesday, and this is what we do. And it's all a bit weird. Are you still tucked up in your house, Chris?
I am, yes. In my day job, tomorrow I'm actually, for the first time in however long we've been in lockdown, I'm having face-to-face meetings with some of the people I work with, but that's going to be outdoors and distanced, because from where I'm looking, anything happening outdoors is very low risk. And the people I work with are people who are likely to be quite anxious anyway, but nevertheless they are keen on the idea of meeting outdoors. So that's going to be a bit of a change for them and for me.
Yeah. Oh, well, I wish you well with that. Yes, as I say, it's just feeling a bit. Yeah. It's nice to see people, and I've missed shaking hands with people. I'm a shaky handy kind of fellow. And at the shed, I always like to greet people with a firm handshake. So for a little while, that's been somewhat missing.
But you're not at the shaking hands stage at the moment. Well, you are.
No, we are, because Guernsey is. We haven't had any active or known active cases for 60-something days.
Oh, really?
Like that.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah.
Oh, I'm being told by JP, the producer in the background, over 70. So.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll look it up on the Google webs in a moment. So we're in a good way, but things are just starting to get back to whatever normal is.
Somebody on Twitter this morning was saying, why do we should stop using the phrase new normal, because it's not going to be normal. and we don't want it to be a new normal. We want to get back to the not completely back to the start, but we want to rewind a bit, don't we?
I must admit, and talking to some folks this morning, one of the things that I really cherished over lockdown was the quiet, the lack of road noise, particularly the loud motorbikes and cars that drive me mad. After so many weeks of peace and quiet, going out for a walk in the evening and not hearing anything, to now it's sort of back with vengeance, and it's really grating.
Noticeable.
Painfully so. But so how we go back to something new, I don't quite know. There we go.
No. Certainly an opportunity.
Yes. I fear it's going to be, for the many, an opportunity missed. That's possibly pessimistic, but it's often the way. But if we all make small changes, then the greater impact is positive. Let's just have a look at where you are, Chris. I'd never heard of Royston before, so let's pair ourselves off to the side, shuffle away out to the side. It's always the other way. And then here's there you go. So tell us about Royston.
Well, what's so special about it? Oh, well, we have a palace, which was used as a hunting lodge by James I, who used to go hunting on a place called Thurfield Heath, which is pretty much in the middle of Royston. We have an underground bell-shaped cave in the middle of town, with some ancient carvings on the walls. Lots of people outside of Royston are the sort of thing, they know more about it than we do. But it can be visited. the people who know most about it say that nobody's quite sure what it was used for. They think it might have been a secret meeting place for the Knights Templars, the meeting underground. But I actually think people do know what it's for, and it's much better for if you pretend you don't know the origins of it, and it adds to the curiosity about it.
So sort of prehistoric sewer or something like that.
Yeah, maybe that, or storage, even something as mundane as storage, because there's anyway. So we've got a lot of that. We're on the Meridian line, so that's sort of, there's a school, the local school used to be called Meridian, it's now changed its name. And we're very well connected because we're on the main line out of King's Cross, which is how I came to be here, because I was working in King's Cross at the time and left London and looked up the railway line. So we have a lot of people commuting into London because of it's a good railway line. Yeah.
What's your population?
17,000 and growing. And so and we have sort of when the airports are open, we have two airports, Stansted and Luton, within 45 minutes. We're just through Stevenage on the main line, north and south. So, and then we've got two motorways. So we're very well connected. If people want that sort of thing. So So quite a big commuter population. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you. Now, I'm going to say we met probably about 3 years ago. I should look it up on my interwebs thing. Because I know I've got the audio recording of us on the radio when we first met on BBC Guernsey. I was asked to go in for an interview in the early days of our men's shed over here, to talk about what we were trying to create. And unbeknownst to me, the radio producers had done their homework and contacted you. Now, and then we were introduced on the radio, which is a wonderful surprise for me, because apart from the Patrick Abrams talk in Guernsey at the conference late 2016, which I've spoken about at length, I've never actually spoken to another shedder. So all of a sudden to be on the radio talking to another shedder was quite exciting.
Didn't feel quite as lonely.
Well, exactly, yeah. Quite. So why did they choose you? What?
It was it was probably two things. First of all, locally, whenever Radio Cambridgeshire, BBC Radio Cambridgeshire, whenever they wanted somebody to talk about rubbish, they talk to me, or they used to talk to me. So maybe there was something from there, but the other I suppose was that that I was available, willing and available. And down the years, I've done quite a lot of radio things for the World Service and whatever. So I don't mind doing it. And I probably said yes when everybody else said no. So the way it does. But I mean, this is all really part of putting back into the system or the movement, which has given me so much in return. So I sort of, it's sort of payback time sort of thing. Yeah. Okay,
so you have not an official role, but you are a trustee of the UK Men's Shed Association. So what did that involve, and how did that come about?
Yeah, well, the Men's Shed Association is the umbrella organisation for sheds throughout the UK. Some become members of UK men's sheds, but it actually provides support to any sheds that come asking for help.
Great.
It's the governance of, it's not the direct governance of each shed, because each shed is absolutely independent. And sometimes people say, oh, you should be talking to that shed and telling them what to do. And we say, no, we're here to support sheds. We're here to give them support if they ask for it, but we're not actually telling them what to do. And so it's a governance, and why I'm involved is because when I helped to set up the repair shed in Hemel Hempstead, which 3 years after I left, I was there for 3 years, and it's now doing wonderfully without me, which is great. But when I set it up, I have an interest in social enterprise, and I have an interest in how sheds can earn their own income, because obviously that brings independence. It means you're not spending all your time filling in funding applications and filling in reports to funders, which not unreasonably they expect you to do. So my interest was in earned income, and I simply put out a circular email to the sheds, to, I don't know, 20 or 30 sheds around the country that I got off the website. And I was amazed and delighted by the response I got from about half a dozen sheds who said, yeah, we'll tell you about what we've done, whatever, including somebody up in Liverpool who sent me the whole business plan and things like that. And I was just overwhelmed by the fact that they didn't know me from Adam, and yet they shared all this really useful information. So I told myself, well, when we're up and running, when we've got things sorted, I will try and put back into the system. So I don't know whether I made it clear that I was willing to be a trustee, but or maybe I was asked, and volunteered to be a trustee. And I've sort of been doing it ever since. I think I've been there rather longer than is probably good for me or UK Men's Sheds. But of course, it's up to everybody else to sort of vote me off. But no, we have to reapply for membership on a rolling basis. So so it's just trying to support other sheds, because other sheds gave me so much support when I needed it and when I wanted it and when I asked for it. Yeah.
Tremendous. Well, on behalf of everybody else, thank you very much. What are you drinking there today, Chris?
Well, it's water, but it is an Australia glass, which it comes from Bristol, and I did actually ask before I took it from the bar where I was drinking. I often find if you just say, "Do you mind if I take this glass?" they usually say yes. So it's
getting bombarded with flies here today. Sorry, my animal magnetism.
Yeah.
Me, I'm drinking a very milky tea. Hello.
Good.
Is it tea you're looking for?
Oh dear, yes.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Was that a song by Lionel Richie?
I'm afraid Rich Tea. Oh dear. Did you say Rich Tea? Yeah. Sorry. Yes.
There's a very good mug that must be the twin of this mug.
Yeah.
And it has a portrait of Lionel Richie. But sort of carved and shaded in a rich tea biscuit. And I'd like to get hold of that.
Great fun making it, yeah.
So moving on, still within the bigger shed picture, I've got some pictures from last week. Let me add this to the stream. There we go. You were involved, as was I, last week, in the 2020 ShedFest, or the virtual ShedFest. I'm guessing that wasn't your first time around.
Well, it wasn't first. It was first time, obviously, for the virtual version, but I've been to ShedFest on a couple of occasions. And usually it's sort of all packed into one day. Well, it's I have to say, hand on heart, it's astonishing how many people turn out, because every year we say, oh, will there be more people than last year? And, you get very nervous. Will people book and things like that? And it was absolutely brilliant. The numbers that turned out to the real ShedFest, not the real ShedFest. And I think it's a bit like you were saying earlier. It's just the sense of camaraderie, the sense of it, we're all in it together. And without wishing to sort of belittle men's ability and sound not supportive, it's men doing it for themselves. And I think it's just great. And obviously there are a lot of women turn up, women get involved, but I think it's quite nice that we've all been through this learning process, and as I say, we're sharing it with other people. And what better way to share it than face to face, because whatever problem anybody has, somebody else has probably had the same problem. So why not just tap into the wealth of knowledge there is between shed members? A
couple of the sessions last week that I thought were sort of really powerful were re-engaging with your community and shed leadership. I need to go back and rewatch them because I was sort of kind of too involved last week. I need to go back and rewatch those 2 sessions because that had a lot of the sort of shared problems of sheds, which was really really useful and meaty to dig into.
And what always surprises and delights me is that you're grappling with a problem and somebody else has grappled with it and they simply say, oh, this is what we did. And you suddenly think, yeah, why didn't I think of that? And yeah, I think it was Voltaire said, common sense is not always as common as we would like it to be. And sometimes people just have to point out the bleeding obvious. And we can't all think of everything all at once. So let's not get worked up about it, and let's find any simple solutions that other people have come up with. And it's so reassuring. It's so reassuring. You think that you're the only one, and then you discover that everybody else has been grappling with similar things. And as I say, often they've found a solution. So it's so reassuring. It's like it is like a comfort blanket, isn't it?
If you just watch the slides as they come around, the next one I think has got Chris Fisher, the wood turner. Next one, he was just amazing. But look at the comment at the bottom. John Lee, greetings from Royston Repair Cafe.
There you go.
And it was seeing that on this sort of post ShedFest slideshow that made me think I need to get in touch with Chris and talk about this repair cafe business. It's something that we've been talking about for 3 or more years. Our men's shed here is co-located and co-creating the whole space with Makerspace in Guernsey. Because there's that shared vision about sort of access to tools. So Repair Cafe is something that's sort of strong on our heart. And then probably at least 18 months ago, another guy that we'd never come across before, actually works in law and what have you over here, came to us and said, we're interested in setting up a repair cafe. We had a long conversation with him, lots of idea sharing. I don't know quite how far he's got along the road, but he's trying to set something up, partly because we're not ready yet. We're still renovating and making a mess. But when I heard that that's what you were involved with, I thought that's a worthwhile conversation because, again, you're part of this big repair cafe network. And we can draw from you, and it's something that other sheds can draw on. And like you were saying before about, excuse me, very itchy nose today, can tap into a potential income stream. I'm guessing.
I mean,
let's have a look.
I mean, that's right. The first thing is really to say that is to make the distinction between sort of high tech and low tech, because there is a it's certainly sort of in the UK there's a practical difference, which is that we repair cafes tend to be low tech, not exceptionally so, and it's a bit like a men's shed. There's no typical repair cafe, but they tend to be lower tech things. So if people are bringing in, and that's why when you mentioned about the makerspace, I'm wondering whether the people there are quite techie minded and whatever, because in mainly in London, actually, and in other mainland Europe, there's a thing called repair cafes. Sorry, no, I don't mean repair cafes. I mean restart parties. You see how confusing it is. They're called restart parties, and they tend to be the high tech things that are teaching people how to mend phones and things like that, and iPads. And as I say, traditionally repair cafes tend not to do that. So there's a little bit of a distinction, but the principles are the same, which is keeping things in use as long as possible. And I learned about repair cafes for the first time about 7 years ago on Twitter, interestingly, in the same week as I discovered men's sheds. So that's why what I set up in Hemel Hempstead is called the Repair Shed, because I sort of merged the two ideas together. But what grabbed me was that the fact that a repair cafe is about bringing the community together to save waste and to save money, because obviously everything people can keep in use, it saves them from having to buy a new and probably inferior version of whatever has gone wrong. So that idea grabbed me. But what I should explain is we had previously set up our free cycle group here in Royston. For for technical reasons, it ceased to exist now. But so we've been running that for about 7 years before we set up the Repair Cafe. And in fact, a lot of our repairers came through the free cycle group. We put out a call saying we're looking for people who are interested in repairing things. And that's really how we got most of our repairers to start up the Repair Cafe. And we were sort of certain pioneers. As I say, 7 years ago or 6 years ago, we had our first Repair Cafe. And at that time, there were only 11 others in the UK. There are now about 150 which are registered. And worldwide, there are about 2,000 repair cafes now. It started in the Netherlands and came over from the Netherlands. And if you if you put Repair Cafe into Google, it'll bring up the website in the Netherlands. And they're still very supportive of helping to start up repair cafes. Yeah.
That's good stuff. I'd heard about it coming from the Netherlands, and then a few years ago, there was a video. I'm sure you're familiar with it, but there was a little video segment, a story that stuck with me. A woman who had a handed down radio. It was her father's, it was her grandfather's, whichever. It was just nothing special, just a portable radio. And she brought it to the Repair Cafe saying, it doesn't work. Can it be fixed? Now, and this is the big thing, is she didn't just walk away, leaving the radio there. That was what really spoke to me, was the significance of her being paired up with someone. Oh, yes, Jeff knows about radios. Go and sit down with him. And she sat down with him. So lots of people keep saying to me, "Oh, have we seen that repair workshop thing on the radio? On the TV?" And I've seen 2 or 3 of those. I'd like to watch more. And they are brilliant and really inspiring. But of course, the punters drop their item off, whether it's a clock or whatever, and walk away, which I get it for the program. But actually, in terms of Repair Cafe, I'm teaching you to suck eggs. That importance of sitting down with someone. So this woman sat down with somebody, and the bloke said, "Oh, let's open it up." "Oh, can we do that?" "Yes." "Here's a Phillips screwdriver." "Oh, right." She didn't know what that was, and off she goes. "Can I do this? Am I going to get electrocuted?" "No, you're okay." "Oh, right." So all of this was utterly new ground for her. Something as simple as taking the back off a radio. And of course, once you look in there, it gets quite technical. But he was able to point at this does this, this does this. Now, of course, she's not going to become a radio engineer in 10 minutes. But she's got a sense of what the magic is inside. Great. And then what they spotted was one of the battery connector wires had popped off the circuit board. He said, "Oh, there's your problem." "Oh, can that be fixed?" Yes, it can. So they get a soldering iron, and she does the soldering with him. Put it all back together. It works good as gold. And she walks away clutching her radio in a different way than if she just dropped it off at the shop and paid £25 to get it fixed.
I mean, there's several things that occurred to me as you were talking there. The first thing is you're suggesting the repair shop on TV is both a sort of it's a blessing and it's a bit of a curse as well. The blessing is that it plants in people's heads the idea that things A can be repaired, and B also there are some things which money can't put any. You can't put a price on the value of something if it has a real sentimental attachment. So that's the great thing. It plants in the eye. It gives high profile to the idea of repairing things. The downside is, of course, that people perhaps come to repair cafes with an inflated expectation of what can be achieved. Because one of our problems, of course, is how long do you give to a repair? If you're really talking about not taking it away and doing it in your spare time. And of course, if you've opened up somebody's, radio and you've taken 40 screws out, and people say, oh well, you should limit your repair to 45 minutes. You can't really say at the end of 45 minutes, sorry, you'll have to take it away, whatever. So invariably people put in a lot more time than is probably efficient, but nevertheless they want to get the job done. But and the other thing, of course, is that the first thing we say is we're a clinic, not a hospital. So if somebody's bringing in something which is a major job, even if our repairers could do it, if it's a major job, we tend to say, well, take it away, and we try to develop good relationships with professionals, because we actually don't want to put professionals out of business. If they're around, we want to keep them in business. So sometimes we'll say, we could do it, but you should take it to so-and-so because it needs more time than we can give to it. And the other thing we say is, if it really is very valuable, think twice about leaving, bringing it, because actually we can't guarantee that something isn't going to go wrong. Whereas, of course, the professionals you see on TV they probably spent days and days and days on it. And of course, I'm always interested to know who picks up the tab for all that expertise. But anyway.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I had. Obviously, it is TV land, and there's no sense of time. Like you say, days, weeks have gone by before they phone Mrs. Smith up and say your thingy's ready. They're just waiting for parts or manufacturing. Some of the stuff they do is highly intricate.
But the most rewarding repairs, as you've sort of alluded to, are where there is a great story behind the item. And back in November 2017, I was in Cambridge. Has now developed about 20 repair cafes, inspired by Royston. We were the first, and then they got the idea from us. So they have a local connection with a really brilliant DIY, a family tool shop in Cambridge called Mackay's, and Mackay's support them with providing spare consumables, and they've equipped a couple of toolkits for them to take round. And I was part of what was then the biggest repair cafe in the world. It was a sort of a one-day attempt to beat a previous record. So, and a woman brought in a garden fork with a broken wooden handle, and she said, "Can you mend this for me?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "I can," and I said, "You do realize that you could buy a new wooden handle and it would be as good as new?" She said, "No." She said, this garden fork, it belonged to my grandmother, and she said, and we worked out it was over 100 years old. And she said, it's the fact that it was my mother and my mother's mother who had used the garden fork. That's why I bought it. That's why I want it repaired. So invariably, it is the ones that have some sort of historic and family value that are the most rewarding, because people are just assuming that it'll never be mended. And then, maybe half an hour later, it's been fixed or something. And often it's very, very little things. There was a very capable young guy who came in, and he'd never seen inside the back of a flat screen TV. And one of the repairers said, well, where it was left was, go off on eBay, look for this part, and he gave him the link to the part, and it was something like 50p. And when you get it, put it in this slot, and it should work. And about 2 weeks later, I got an email from this guy to say, it works, it works, it works. And all for the sake of a 50p part. Now, he was confident enough to be told what to do and then do it. He didn't have the confidence to do it without being instructed to do it, and he did. And he was just so delighted that his flat screen TV was working. So what rewards the repairers is really that sense of achievement and the delight on the part of the owners, who, they basically get it all done for free, although we invite them to leave donations if they want to. And a lot of them do, and we manage to sort of keep ourselves stocked up and pay for venue hire and such like out of the proceeds of the donations we get. So,
Very, very cool. Shall we take a look at some of your pictures from Royston's Now, this is a good place to
Yeah.
start. We've all heard of the reduce, reuse, and recycle, but this goes a lot further, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And of course, the thing is that recycle is actually not very energy efficient, recycling.
Yeah.
So actually you do it almost as a last resort, you think about all the other stages you can get to before you get there.
Yeah, well, I can testify to that as well. I mean, Guernsey just recently was announced that we are recycling now 70% of our household waste, to which, brilliant, well done everybody. But I know the amount of recycling that I put out every week, be it paperwork and plastics and metal and bottles, and it's volumes of stuff, which, even though we're trying to be, trying to reduce in the first place, and even though we're doing the right thing by recycling it, it's still a lot of stuff which actually isn't always necessary. So I think the refuse one as well. My son and I, we've been to sort of various sort of events and trade shows where it's customary for organizations or businesses to hang and hand out your bag of goodies, your little grab bag of it's a plastic bag, and it's got a plastic bobbly head thing and a couple of pencils and a plastic ruler, and you come home with this stuff and you think, why did I accept that? I don't. Oh, now I've got to deal with this stuff that I didn't really want. But we've started to do that over the last year or so, to be able to say, no thanks, I don't need your car sticker. I don't want it.
And I've been brought up by my parents principally to believe that we do have choices. We can make, as consumers, we can make individual decisions, which individually maybe they make a statement, they whatever. But I always think the advertisement value of putting on something like a repair cafe, because I usually get pretty good publicity through the local magazine because I used to write for them. And I always think for every person who comes along to the repair cafe, somebody has seen the piece in the magazine, and it's drip, 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 thinking, yes, repair. And so I think, there's a great sort of value in just education before people take action. And maybe they think twice next time they're out and about, sort of thing. So the power of the individual.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, very, very good. Let's get into some of your pictures of your merry band.
Yes, we generally have a pool of about 15 repairers. Looking around, this photo was taken a little while ago, but this is at the Coombs Community Centre, where we currently have our repair cafes. We organise about 4 every year. You can see there's quite a lot of balding heads there. But we are, interestingly, and this is obviously after 6 years, I now find that we don't have to go looking for repairers. They come and find us. And they say, are you ever looking for somebody else? And it might be people who've been engineers, or, a sort of mentality of people who want to fix things or have a problem solving sort of brain. And all I say is to them is, come along, see what goes on, which obviously is the best single way you can get a feel for what happens. And I then usually buddy them up with somebody who's been doing it for a while. And usually before the end of the session, and our sessions are about 3 hours, before the end of the session, the individual person who's just been buddied up is off doing their own thing, sort of thing. But obviously you do it very much sort of at their pace. And the great thing that we emphasize, a bit like in sheds, is if you feel you're out of your depth, say so. Don't feel pressured into doing something you're not comfortable with. And there's such a great camaraderie amongst the repairers that somebody will, people that I think are geniuses will go up to somebody else and say, I've got a problem. Have you got any ideas? And they'll say, well, have you thought of doing so-and-so? And the other guy will say, no, that's the answer.
Yeah.
To see the spark between two geniuses who I think can solve anything, and just literally the two heads are better than one. So it's great that everybody helps everybody else, and nobody claims to be an expert on any one particular thing. And that's really the secret, because otherwise you can get people doing some sort of potentially dangerous things, because they feel under pressure to get something done. And it's having that confidence to say, no, I'm not happy with doing this. And we always check with the individual repairer. We say, there's a hairdryer needs looking at. Are you happy to look at it? And they'll say yes or no, depending on how they're feeling, So, yeah.
That's important. Yeah. Not to get yourself into, if it's mains-based, dangerous stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yes. I don't know how this photo slipped in, but this is in my garden shed.
You said all the photographs on the Facebook page I own, so we can use those.
Yeah. Fine.
So I went and sucked them all off the Facebook page.
That's fine. You can in the background, you can see how I like repurposing things. So I changed some hubcaps into a mirror, and the other was made into a clock and things like that. Although actually, I don't think plastic hubcaps are very beautiful. So that's why they're sitting there. But no, the problem with organising a repair cafe is that actually you don't get your hands dirty. You're matching people up with repairers. You're helping the booking in. You're helping making the tea, because a repair cafe does actually feature tea and coffee and cake and biscuits and things like that. So I miss the hands-on when I'm actually organising the repair cafe, which is why I then get back to my own shed and do stuff when I'm there, sort of thing. So
I think the caption that came with this on Facebook was about the apron.
Oh yes.
That was the significance, I think, of this.
Yeah, there's one a member of the repair shed that I helped to set up down in Hemel. She set up a thing called the Sewing Cafe, which is basically teaching people how to sew. 1 day a week, it's actually in the same space as the men's shed. And so she we got some cast off material through FreeCycle, and her Sewing Cafe made up aprons for us all. And actually, there's an interesting thing about any sort of uniform or apron like that, which is there are some repair cafes who believe that you shouldn't do anything which separates the repairers from the people who own the items. That if you're actually trying to fix things together, you don't want to sort of we don't want to set repairers up as being the experts at teaching other people.
Sure.
Within repair cafes, it's very variable as to how, like you were saying earlier, how much the individual is involved in the repair job. But then we're starting to think about putting on Skillshare sessions. So something as basic as how to mend a puncture on a bike puncture, or how to replace a plug, or even how to replace a fuse. Because it's too easy to assume that everybody knows how to replace a fuse in a plug. And of course, not everybody does. And certainly people don't necessarily know how to do it safely. So I think there is a role for having Skillshare sessions whereby you can give more time to teaching people how to do things and this, that, and the other. And they can be attached to a repair cafe, but they have a slightly different role. And of course, not everybody is good at teaching other people how to do things. They might know how to do it themselves, but actually communicating it to somebody is not everybody's cup of tea. So
yes. Yeah, very cool. So I wonder if there's that notion of only the repairers wearing aprons isn't a good thing. Do you give all the punters an apron as they walk in as well?
We could do, yeah. We don't, but we could do. I mean, we've got about 10, I think, so not everybody would get one anyway. But yeah, and I mean, we always aim to have our names on badges and things like that, just so we can be that extra friendly. But I don't know. Does it reassure somebody bringing in their very valuable, I don't know, TV? Does it reassure them to see somebody with an apron on, or does it not? I don't know. It's funny
there's a whole layer of psychology there, isn't there?
Yeah. Should we all be wearing white coats?
Yeah, right. Just do it. Be a mad scientist. Look.
Yeah. Yes.
So this is good. It's an example of the sorts of things that your
That's right.
chaps are tackling.
Yeah.
Um,
Obviously it's a kneeling chair, which came through free cycle, because what happened with a lot of free cycle is people say, this is broken, I don't want it, but would you like to have it and repair it, whatever. And generally we say, well, can you bring it along to the repair cafe? We'll mend it, and then you can put it on free cycle. Otherwise, we become a dumping ground for lots of people's. And it's very well meant. It's very well meant, but we simply don't have space. And this was somebody who sat down too heavily on this thing and broke it. But it's been mended. It's back working. It's whatever.
We've seen similar stuff. We've got a Wednesday mornings, actually. This morning was our first session back at our men's shed outreach project at a centre for supported living. There's 100 or so adults living there. And we had a few guys along this morning. A couple of guys missing because of ill health. But yeah, we've had a number of items come from the community where they've, it's a bit of an MDF kind of bit of furniture, and it's been, abused somewhat. And it's not easy repairing the MDF or the chipboard or something like that. But as long as they don't mind a bit of a hands, it's not aesthetic, but it works. We're happy to do it, but we've said we're not furniture restorers.
And of course bikes, and I would imagine, well, I'm hearing that bike shops are being run off their feet during after lockdown sort of thing, and long may it continue. I mean, I within a repair cafe, obviously things can be a bit seasonal, so my publicity is usually geared to the season. So when you're getting into warmer weather, you put a circular around saying, time to clear out the shed. You've probably got a bike in there. Are all your gardening tools sharpened? And in fact, one of the repair cafes in Malvern, in the Midlands, they most of their summer is spent sharpening gardening tools and things like that. And all very useful it is too. So this guy Dale, he's got all the equipment, and we get a certain number of bikes coming in, and invariably people go away happy because. But again, we don't want to put the local bike shop out of business. And when we first set up the repair cafe, I sent a circular out to about a dozen different repair businesses within about 10 miles of Royston, and I said, look, we're setting this up. We're enthusiastic amateurs. We're not about you putting you out of business, and we will put together a list of repairers in the area, and we'll make sure you're on there if you send us details. And out of those dozen people, only one got back to me with details. Now, okay, I'm not going to take a dig at them, but you sort of think, well, here's an offer of free publicity. And whatever. Anyway, it didn't mean that I didn't put together a listing. So we do have a listing of all the local repairers. But the only people who came back to me were a domestic appliance business, a father and son family business just near the station in Royston, who is still operating. And as a reward, because they were the only person who got back to me, I did an interview for them and put it in the local paper. So it was sort of acknowledging the fact they'd taken the effort just to get back in touch with me. But so we always go out of our way not to and if do you know the American the American movement, it really is called iFixit, and they've got a website, and they've got lots of wonderful repair guides, thousands of repair guides, and actually in Royston, unusually, we've got an iFixit repair shop. So any sort of high-tech people who come to us and say, can you mend my mobile phone? We say no. A, we don't really do that. And B, go to iFixit because they will do it for you. So we try and support the local economy wherever we can.
Yeah, that makes sense for everybody. Yeah.
We have no interest in not helping professional repairers. Yeah.
Absolutely. Through sort of makerspace contacts over here, and I stress that we're not open yet as a makerspace. Sadly, we're getting there. But we've had contact with a fairly local bike shop at that end of the island, who've said that they will provide one of these sort of clamp stand jobs,
like you see there.
Which most people don't have access to. And having just worked on a bike extensively for my son, that would have been so handy. But also, there's lots of tools that if you really want to get into working on a bike, you need that one tool for undoing the bottom casing or whatever. And it's a £50 tool or something. And you'll use it how many times in your life?
I know.
So it fits the makerspace model very well in that you've got access to tools that you wouldn't have need for. So once we're up and running, we'll be talking to them again and getting hopefully a full bike station set up, and that hopefully will be of use to our repair cafe. Sometimes it is not knowing how to set up the brake blocks and not knowing, and if they can supply us with parts, then they're getting us straight away with inner tubes and that sort of stuff, new chains.
I just wanted to give a shout out for Dale, who's working on the bike, because he's a man of many talents, and he does leather work. And people organise these reenactments with costumes and battles and things like that. And he does a lot of leather work for weapons and for people's weapons and things like that. And so he does all the hand sewing that we need to do. So people will bring in, say, I don't know, a rucksack maybe, which is probably quite heavy duty sewing. Can't be done easily on a sewing machine. And he does all the sewing for things like that. So it's great having him there.
Where is Dale exactly right now? When I need him?
Where is he when you need him? But
absolutely, Dale, I need you.
Sewing machines are a great example, because we get a surprising number of sewing machines coming in that need fixing, and we have a woman, Jackie, who knows. She doesn't know about repairing sewing machines, but she knows about setting up sewing machines. And she says, don't give the sewing machine to the repairers until I've had a look at it, because 9 times out of 10 the problem is not a problem. It's because the thing is set up wrongly. She says once you get those repairs onto it. But one of my happiest moments was when we had 2 sewing machines in at the same time. And one was a very modern sewing machine, which was all sort of computerized. And the other was sort of almost a museum piece. And the 2 guys, Dermot and Chris, who actually mended them, and they did mend them, neither of them had worked on sewing machines ever before. But it's just they had the right mentality. They thought, why isn't this working? And they worked back from it and worked it out and fixed it. So I always say that it's, being able to repair something, it's not necessarily being familiar with the item. It's having the right sort of thought processes to think through and to trace back and to think
how to troubleshoot.
Troubleshooting. So I think there's a whole course to be run on how to troubleshoot. Because
it's something that is missed in our education system. It should, I don't know how you integrate, but it's got to be integrated. And there are moves to change education, but those sorts of skills, I don't know how you quantify them, but they're so valuable. And like you say, they cross all disciplines, don't they? That troubleshooting mentality of, if it's not this, it could be that. Let's isolate. Is it happening here or is it happening here? Right. Now I know it's happening at this stage. Whatever it is.
Because even I've had to sort of educate my own sort of emotional reaction when something's completely screen goes blank. My immediate reaction is to think the worst. Right. That's it. It's finished. Got to get a new one. Blah blah blah. And then I calm myself down. And then I sort of think, if I was tutoring somebody else, what would I be saying? But, the first thing is, go off and get a cup of coffee, walk away, just don't, whatever. But then you go through these processes, exactly what you've been saying. Why is, what might be wrong, this, that, and the other, and you can track it back. And it may be that you eventually say, no, this is beyond me, but at least you've done the initial thinking. And even silly things, like, well, have you, is the electricity working, and there's of course there's famous stories about IT support services and people saying their computer doesn't work, and, well, can you check it's plugged in? No, I can't see. Why not? Because there's no lights on. Why aren't there any lights? I don't know, they suddenly went off. Oh, well, that could be the reason, but it always happens that way, sort of thing, and
priceless. Yeah.
So I do think it's a life skill, really, isn't it? It is. Yeah. This is a great story here. Obviously, it's I hadn't realised how little is inside a flat screen TV. But the guy Chris, who's the guy I was talking about earlier, who mended a computerized sewing machine, he runs his own, or he set up a repair cafe outside Cambridge, but he set up repair cafes in Ghana. And there you have all sorts of other problems, which is power supplies, access to tools and things like that. So I don't know what he seems to spend all his time traveling around the world setting up repair cafes, but he's to me, he's just an absolute genius. I don't think I've ever, well, should I say, if he can't mend it, then probably nobody can, yeah. And as you can see, looking at something over a cup of tea is very important.
Yeah. The golden rule there is keep the tea out of the device, but very useful tool.
Yeah.
So this guy Chris, if he was in Tanzania or places like that, East Africa, he'd be called a fundi. A fundi.
Yeah. I mean,
tinkerer, maker.
Yeah. I mean, of course, at one level, I was involved with a World Service program. That they have a series, the World Service, called People Fixing the World. And one of the episodes was on repair cafes, and I was linked up. The presenter was in the Netherlands with the first repair cafe there. I was in London in the studio in BBC, and we were linked up with somebody in Mumbai who was running a repair cafe. And of course, there, kids at a very early age learn how to mend mobile phones, Sure. And there are street repairers, on every corner, sort of thing. So in some senses, they're way ahead of us in terms of their ability to make, do, and mend, because that's a necessity, And of course, it's also a way of earning money as well. So and saving money as well. So So in some respects, way ahead of us in terms of their repair skills.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. Let's whizzle through a few of these. I'm aware that you are on time.
It's okay. Well, as long as this course is quite novel. It's not that it's Dale again. It's Dale. It's not that he's very big. It is a tiny armchair. But it was such a beautifully made thing, made as an adult size armchair, but obviously scaled down and a real thing that it's wonderful. Yeah.
Nice.
And darning and whatever. We a lot of repair cafes do have people with sewing machines doing repair work, doing darning, and they're working sort of for 3 hours solid. Interestingly, in our repair cafe, for some unknown reason, we get very few clothing repairs. I don't know why it is. It, as I say, the majority of repair cafes do seem to attract people who have clothing repairs to do and whatever, but but we don't seem to. But this was obviously a darning job. And there are some. This actually was sneaked in from another repair cafe near Cambridge, but but you can see they're full on.
Won't tell them.
Oh, and this is Jackie in the middle is the person who sets up the sewing machines and Dermot on the left is the guy who I jointly set up the free cycle group with and who we jointly set up the repair cafe with. So
Excellent. Just out of interest on your free cycle, what platform was that operating on?
It was Yahoo, and Yahoo changed. Okay. It was a Yahoo group, and they changed the accessibility terms and whatever. So after whatever 12 years, 15 years of doing it, and there were other exchange platforms around. So we're basically shunting people off to Freegal and things like that. So we weren't leaving people without alternatives. But
there's a similar gig in Guernsey on Facebook. There's a group called eCycle, which does exactly the same thing. And obviously, there's a barrier to entry because some people don't want to be on Facebook. But then once you're on, there is quite a large audience. So the downside is when something cool turns up on eCycle page, you've got to be quick.
Sure. I always say that when a group gets a certain size, you really need to. It's good for getting things, but it's good for requesting things, but less good for getting them. Cambridge free cycle group had something like 25,000 members. So if anything decent came up, unless you were sitting by your computer, you had no chance of getting. But requesting things, of course, is much easier. I mean, we got a piano through Free Cycle, and it's simply by posting up a request and then somebody responding to that. So
no, that's a good idea. Yeah. Now, where'd you get one of these, Chris? Where'd you get your Caroline from? She's worth her weight in gold.
Yeah. She's interestingly, she's recently taken over a local business which is all about upcycling and things like that, and vintage, and she might even be selling some of the stuff that I make out of driftwood. So she's a very useful person. But she's a systems person. So booking people in, matching them up, and this, that, and the other is really, really useful. Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm just getting a couple of chip-ins from Facebook. Welcome to Chris. What have I missed? He must have only just joined us. I don't know who it is. If you're joining us on Facebook and you want to add a comment live, just go to the link streamyard.com/Facebook. It's around in the description somewhere, and then we get to see who you are. Pleased to say that Sustainable Devisers is running a repair cafe without the cafe. Oh, you missed something there on Saturday, the 25th of July. So big shout out to them. 10 a.m. in the Shambles. Sounds like the place needs repairing itself. Knife sharpening and cycle repairs, the speciality of the day.
Yeah.
Good stuff. And someone else on Facebook said, I've got a hole in my sock. I'm dying.
Oh dear. They've got a sense of humour like you and me, Marcel.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Dan in Westbury, of course. Okay, so I don't know why, Dan. I don't know why we're seeing you. We're not seeing your name, but there we go. Good to see you, Dan. Thanks for joining us.
Good stuff.
Can you just elucidate briefly on how you book stuff in?
Yeah.
Because that's an important part of the process, isn't it?
Well, yes. Some repair cafes just say turn up and we'll do what we can. Ever since we started ours, I've thought, well, if you've got a bike repairer who's coming in specially, if you haven't got any bikes, or if you know whether your bikes are coming in or not, then it helps the repair, obviously. Yeah. So we just use Eventbrite, and people book in items. And we generally say you can book in more than one item, but we'll only guarantee to look at one. Because invariably we do have people waiting to come in. So we say, we'll look at one, but if you have a second item, you might have to go to the back of the queue. And people sort of say, well, can you give me a time to come in? And we say no, because when somebody brings something in, it might take 5 minutes, it might take 15 minutes. And to say somebody will come in at around 11, it gives them a false sense of preciseness, because they may have to wait for an hour. So what we do is we say, don't come in at the very beginning. So, of course, a lot of people do. We say, don't come in 15 minutes before the end, because we want to get off for our lunch. And we say, come in when it suits, be prepared to wait. There's tea, coffee, and conversation. And the great thing that we've learned over the years is if you can have the tea and coffee, in the same space as the repairers are working in, and that's what we do. We're in a big hall. It means the people who are waiting can see that the repairers are busy. And if they want, they can take a look and see what they're working on. So it means that you all feel as though you're in it together. And people who have to wait know that it's not because the repairers are just sort of twiddling their thumbs and having a nice old chat. And the repairers, in the space of 3 hours, they can work on 5 or 6 items non-stop. And at the end of it, they're, on the one hand, they're elated because they probably had some good successes. On the other hand, they're absolutely exhausted because for 3 hours they've been using all their brain power to work on something, So it's really intensive, which is partly why we only have 4 a year, because we sort of think, give people time to recuperate in between. And of course, some repairers do go off and they attach themselves to other repair cafes in between. So if they want to do more repairs, they can do. But we only put on 4 a year, which we find is about right for us. Yeah.
So there's a shout out, obviously, to Sustainable Devices, who are not running the repair cafe with the cafe. Actually, the cafe bit is a great way of soaking up time. And making it a social activity event rather than just, please come and fix this.
And of course, people get to meet each other. In Royston, we have a lot of people coming back on a regular basis. About 25%, I'd say, are people who've been before. But the new people who come, they get chatting, and of course, not a lot of friendships, but some friendships grow up around the fact that, that people might be on free cycle or something like that, and they're coming along to a repair cafe. And I do think at the when people haven't come for the first, when they haven't been there, they're worried that it's going to be a bit intimidating, as if everybody will know and everybody will ask them awkward questions and whatever. And of course, once they discover that, no, we don't, we're there to sort of, help you. We're not there to make you feel stupid. So questions like, well, have you checked the fuse? If you say no, you won't be sort of banished from, whatever. So it's about, exactly. It's about making people feel as though, well, it was the right thing to do. And I know we get over 50% success rate. Some repair cafes pride themselves on having 80% success rate. But of course, some fixes are far easier than others. So, it depends really what comes in through the door. But
absolutely.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Dan Gamai just said, "Ooh, that's better." Yeah. Thanks, Dan. He did say previously, I thought I was cleared by StreamYard, but no, he wasn't. And he is now. So thanks, Dan.
Well, there you go. Hilarious. Yeah.
And obviously you've got messy stuff that goes outside.
I was going to say, if there's lawnmowers and things, we take them outside rather than do them inside. If you're booking a hall, which usually is what we do, we don't have a permanent venue. If you're booking a hall, the last thing you want to do is mess up the hall. So where you saw Dale working earlier on a bike, we've got a tarpaulin underneath to make sure we don't mess anything up. And that's I think, I don't know what that is. I think that's, well, obviously that's some sort of petrol driven
strimmer,
thing. Strimmer or something. So it's common sense taking it outside to work on it rather than having it inside. But
oil on the floor isn't so good for the Bally group in the afternoon.
No. That guy's job was working on farm machinery, and we lost him to the fact that, I don't know whether he had another property in France, but he moved his work over to France. So France's gain was our loss, I think. But anyway, there you go.
Splitter.
Yeah, and again, you can see that any one time, people are doing different things.
Nice.
Yeah, there's Chris again working on something electronic there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
There's a nice sort of vibe to it that I really love.
Yeah.
And then a couple of pictures of you out and about.
Yeah, this is a bit of our outreach in the marketplace. This was this was in the local Priory Gardens where they put on summer events, and this was really taking a set of photos to show what repair cafes do. And it was the some of the stuff there is stuff that myself and another friend have used reclaimed materials. And bearing in mind that slide you showed originally about Royston reducing waste, I do try and encourage people to think holistically. it's about recycling, it's about reuse, it's about reducing stuff, it's about repairing stuff, and it's really just trying to see how it all ties up in the end. You know, and it is about repurposing.
It's a really valuable message.
Yeah,
If you only think it's about repairing stuff, that's part of it. But it's a much bigger thing.
Yeah. And so you get something repaired and you don't need it. So what do you do with it? You try and pass it on to somebody else. And a lot of the time I've been thinking, and you mentioned it earlier about tool libraries, because there's a famous statistic which is the average electric drill only is used for 13 minutes, of its life. Well, what a waste! What a waste, And things like lawnmowers, which you don't need all the time, sort of thing. So, I'm not going to do it, but I'm really tempted by the idea of setting up a tool library for people to. And our friend Patrick Abrahams in Frome, of course, they have a tool library there. So, which is doing great stuff. Yeah,
I must tap him up about that and ask for some more details. There was a woman that I know of over here, with business interests in London and what have you. She was flip-flopping between the two, but her and her, I think, business partner set up a website a number of years ago with exactly this in mind, and not just being a Guernsey thing, but a UK thing. I'm trying to think what it was called, possibly Eco-Modo. Don't quote me on that. But it was very much that idea of, I've got a thingy, do you want to borrow it? Or it's surplus, do you want it? And I really loved it. And there was also the Skillshare part of it. It's like, I can teach drums. Do you want to swap it for whatever? But I think they closed it down a year or two ago because it didn't grow legs. They had quite a lot of national media on it, but for some reason it didn't go.
It takes a lot of organization. Of course, technology makes it more and more possible, which is why we're doing it. But it does, it takes a certain application to make it work. I've got a little library outside my house, made of completely, apart from the hinges and the lock, the bolt on it, everything is reclaimed, and it's just a very inefficient way of trying to get rid of books. But the number of people who can't believe that they can simply take a book, we have this mentality, which is a sort of a built-in thing. Well, what does he want in return? Nothing. You can take a book, and it's great because young kids go by and they're not particularly books for children, but educating the next generation about the idea of giving things away without expecting to be paid for it, it's just, and I do think in society, the more we can encourage sharing, giving without expecting to receive and whatever. I mean, that's what community is all about. And I think that we have to try and bring up a new generation that says, no, it's not all about selling stuff. It is about sharing, giving away, getting better use out of things and this, that, and the other. Yeah.
Very valuable message.
Yeah.
And I think this is our last picture. Again, on a YouTuber that I follow, AVE, he talks about having the healing bench where tools go to mysteriously get better eventually in time. Looks like a graveyard, but every now and then something will come out of it alive again. That's
great.
That's good to see.
Yeah, again, I mean, the majority of things we get in, I would say, are household items. So it's vacuum cleaners, it's hair dryers. Hair dryers, as you may know, are very difficult, quite dangerous as well. A badly operating hair dryer. And a lot of the time people won't touch hair dryers, but it's very difficult to get inside a hair dryer anyway. But talking about this holistic approach, there is you may be familiar with it. There's an international campaign called the Right to Repair, which is actually trying to put the onus on manufacturers to make available spare parts, make available repair manuals, and liberate. It's mainly around phones and things, and it's very big in America, which is that when you buy your phone, you don't know you're signing up to a declaration which says, I will not repair this myself. I will only use an approved repairer. and it's really and actually this phone doesn't belong to you.
Yeah.
And it's getting ground. It's it's getting mileage here now in Europe, and very much in America, where they're trying to change the law to make it possible for independent repairers to repair things, which is a major battle, and of course to manufacture things so they can be repaired. So
That's a big step.
Which
things used to be, because very often things were manufactured by hand.
Yeah.
But in this day and age, when everything is press fit in the factory by a machine, it's destructive to take it apart again. It clips into place and that's it. You make a proper mess of it trying to get it apart.
The father and son domestic appliance business that I was talking about earlier, when I was doing the interview, I said, because they sell stuff new, but they said, well, we make more money out of new sales, but we actually prefer doing repairs. And they're talking about washing machines where you used to be able to put new bearings in. And the other thing, just to amuse you, is I said, who's your favorite or typical favorite customer? And they said, well, usually it's a woman. And they said, the minute the man, a woman knows she's got a familiar household appliance, she knows all the ticks and all the problems, and she's comfortable with it. She wants to keep it in use. And then she tells her partner, and the partner says, don't worry, darling, I'll mend it. So, of course, he takes it apart. He can't put it together again. And then he says, no, it's beyond repair. And, of course, it wasn't beyond repair, but it is one thing. So what they say to the woman is, get it to us before your husband gets his hands on it, because we will repair it for you and you can have your familiar household appliance.
That's the key message.
Key message, exactly.
Get it to us before he does.
Yeah. So
just chipping again now on YouTube.
It's
around that one. Yes, Share Shop. # Share Shop in Froome, the Library of Things. And then he adds, Chris was a big advocate of Movember fundraising.
No, I've been involved with Movember.
Facial hair now, I reckon, and a fine event support. Where's your facial hair, Chris? That's the question.
Well, I had a beard for 25 years, and I grew it to make myself look older, and I shaved it off to make myself look younger. But I grow a moustache for the last 6 years. I've grown a moustache. And of course, the sillier the better, because if you're growing a normal moustache, nobody ever bothers to ask. But at one stage, a friend of mine said, if you grow 2 moustaches, I'll sponsor you twice as much. So I grew a moustache down, and I grew a moustache. It was a bit like a Swiss Army penknife. It went down and it also went out there. Because, if you don't grow a silly moustache, why bother, sort of thing, So come November, I will be growing a moustache. But November, as you know, is only for November. So,
I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
I'm sort of similar. If I shave this off, I look like I'm about 12. So yes, it's sort of there's several reasons for having the beard, but maybe when I'm that much older, it'll come off and go, oh, you look so young, don't you? Look so fresh. Don't you look great? Yeah.
Well, you can see from my eyebrows the color of the hair that would grow. It would be all white. So
distinguished. Yeah, I must admit, having it go all white on me now would make some commercial sense at the latter end of the year.
Good.
And I have had seasonal work along those lines, but I had to use a product, a spray-on product to get even in the ballpark of the right colour.
Yeah, great.
Chris, thank you so much for your time. I've really appreciated hearing from you.
Yeah, it's been fun.
There is so much for all of us to learn.
Yeah.
I had an email this morning from Derek in Guernsey Shed saying our sharpening gizmo that we've just spent quite a bit of money on arrived today.
Oh, well, there you go.
So the idea of doing sharpenings is something that we sort of batted around the other day, and hearing you talking about that sort of cements that idea in my head that we can offer tool sharpenings.
Maybe a hard because I sometimes say to people who are thinking of setting up a men's shed, set up a repair cafe beforehand, because it's much easier. It really is very easy. So set it up, and then you get your potential shedders coming out of the woodwork, people interested in fixing things, and running a repair cafe, for a year or so, and then you have the makings of a shed. So you don't need your own premises. You can hire a hall and things like that. Most repairers bring their own tools because they prefer to work with their own tools when they're doing repairs. So you don't even need to get the tools in. So have a venue, you get your publicity, and you've got your repairers, and this is it. You're off and running.
Very cool.
So it is seriously, it is very easy to set up one. Yeah.
So that's a top tip to anyone looking at setting up a men's shed.
Maybe think about starting with a repair cafe first, and then see what happens.
Yeah, it's a really good idea. I mean, in a sort of parallel, 8.5 years ago, a couple of guys met, myself included, and said, we want to set up a makerspace, but we didn't have the venue or the resources to set one up. So we did the next best thing, which was set up a community group. And we've just passed our 8th birthday. We started under the name of Nerd Nights. Then we merged with another group about 3 years ago, became Light Bulb Nights. I'm thinking of going back to Nerd Nights because I like that title. I prefer it. But we still meet and we gather passionate, creative individuals of all different backgrounds. And now we're getting a makerspace sorted out, and it's sort of come about. But we've got a community, a group, and lots of contacts. Do what you can. It's kind of what you're saying. Do something.
Just build confidence, really.
Absolutely. Dan just chipping in. Right to Repair campaign. Brilliant. Louis Rosserman in New York City. A welcome thorn in the apple court. Great YouTube channel too. So that's one worth looking up. Louis Rosserman. Not heard of them before.
And as I say, if people are particularly interested in high tech, if you go to a website for the Restart project, they will give you all the information on the sort of the higher tech stuff that's going on.
Great.
Excellent. And they're very big. There's a European Repair Alliance or things. So they're very much part of the European movement.
Excellent.
Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, Chris. I know you've got other stuff to be doing, so we really appreciate it.
It's good fun. Thanks. No, it's always happy to chat about rubbish.
Which is back to where we started from, going on the radio, you and me talking rubbish. Excellent.
Great stuff. Okay. Good.
Until next time. Cheerio.
Bye-bye.
Fantastic. Chris Lee there in Royston, Hertfordshire, I believe. The takeaway from that is, if you're trying to set up a men's shed, set up a repair cafe first. And do something, do anything, do something in the right direction and the rest of it will follow. Normally, we would at this stage put kettle on, PKO, and have a tea and wee. Well, my tea is almost out, and I'm afraid I don't have another guest on standby. So I think we'll call it a day. Dan just saying goodbye. Yay, Chris Lee. See you soon. Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Dan. Thank you for joining us. I hope it's been of interest, and I hope it's been of use. If there's not a repair cafe in your vicinity, then maybe think about starting one. Until next time, à la prochaine, as we say in Guernsey, which means until next time, until I see you again, à la prochaine.